welcome to the Up Podcast, raw real talk on everything young parenting.
From self-care, co-parenting, and family planning, to balancing school, work, relationships, and goals.
Together, we're challenging society's assumptions and building a safe and supportive community for young parents.
One honest conversation at a time. So join us on the journey.
Brandy, you didn't tell me we were dancing.
Surprise! We are ready and in the spirit.
Is anyone else in the holiday spirit like we are? Please don't mind the tree. Didn't get the bulbs yet. But today is going to be all kinds of holiday spirit, very fun, lighthearted. We're going to be doing some holiday Q&As. So as always, to get started, it's Divine.
And I'm Brandy, and I am ready. I feel like I've been ready. Like, I'm not decorated. I do have my little tree, so appreciate that. But I feel like I've been ready since July.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know, like this. Yeah, this season just gives me all the warms and fuzzies. Like, I just feel like it's so happy. People are happy. People are joyful. So I'm excited. But let's jump in to the Q&A because y'all have a lot of questions and we have a lot of answers. So let's go. Okay, so we're going to start off strong. Okay, so first question is, do you feel pressure to achieve like this certain perfect parent image on social media? And I'll say even like in life, do you feel like you have to be a perfect parent or appear to be a perfect parent?
Absolutely. I feel like in both realms, I mean, especially with social media being like so in our faces nowadays with the content creating, it definitely can be what's that, like a still a joy when you're put in these positions to compare your situations, and it's very unrealistic to do that because you never know what's going on behind closed doors for people and what they're going through, or the inch of the screen that you can see. And so it goes so beyond that. But as far as in person, I would say yes and no. I am very like independent. I don't care what anyone has to say. But being a parent is such a sensitive topic, when you're out in public and your kids talk back to you and people look at you, and it's just like, how do you navigate that? How do you feel comfortable in that space? So yeah, I would say so.
I agree. I think we have too much shame that like, I don't know, I feel like we have too much shame. Like everything is wrapped up in our identity. If our kids act up, then that's our identity. So I think that started just even being a young parent, right? Because you have to prove that you're good enough. You have to prove all these things. So I would say I do feel like I have to uphold this image. But I also think that like for social media, it is such a snapshot that don't trust what you see because that's perfect parenting. There's a lot that I don't care to hide, like screen time, whatever it is. So yeah.
Well, that leads me to our next question, which is, how do you handle criticism from family, friends, society, strangers about your parenting choices?
Yeah. I mean, the real is the real is I go home and stress myself out, spiral, think about it over and over again. Am I a bad parent? Am I whatever? But also the real is I think that I've gotten to a point where I take criticism or direction or whatever at face value. If you ask my mom, she will say that she has noticed that there's a point in time in our communication that I will just shut down. Like I'll just stop listening. Right. So for me, it's like that's a protective factor. Even if it's like good advice or whatever, I'm one that I don't like unsolicited advice. So if I bring a situation to you, if I allow you in my space or to see any parts of my parenting and I don't ask you for advice, I don't want it. Right. And so,
Right.
because you don't know what that advice may be like something I'm really insecure about. And so, I don't want advice if I don't ask for it. And so, typically, what I'll do is I'll just block it out. I don't think a lot of people criticize, but I think that there have been times where people have been like, oh, maybe you should do this or maybe you should do that. And I'm like, I don't need you to tell me that. And I think also it's a defense because being a young parent, it's always like you don't know anything. And so don't tell me that. Let me figure it out on my own. If it's wrong, it's wrong. I'll figure it out. But I don't like unsolicited advice.
Yeah, I'm the same way, to be honest. I get very triggersome. It definitely is like a defense mechanism on my end that I've learned to get better with, mainly because I kind of let it go in one ear and out the other. But just being a young parent and being parented while being a young parent come with like a lot of pressures. And now that I have like freedom, I will walk away. Like the last time I visited home did not go well because one of my parents interrupted my attempt to disciplining my child, and it got so extreme that I literally grabbed our things and left the house. And I've actually never in my life have done that before.
Yeah.
um I didn't really have the opportunity to. I wasn't driving when I was back home with my parents and stuff, but it definitely gives you much more freedom as you grow into parenting and getting like your advocacy behind that. But it's a lot because, like you said, you sit with those feelings, and I've always been insecure about being a parent just from solely being a young parent and society thinking I don't know what I'm doing. So it's always like when my parents tell me something, it's just like, okay, so are you saying I don't do that? Like
Right.
what's wrong with what I am doing? Like
Right.
why are you telling me that? Like just for an example, my mom, and it may be like super unconscious for her, but she'll reach out and be like, hey, I love you. Just reminder, let Dynasty know how much you love her. And like something could just be so sweet as a reminder, like I'm
Right.
reminding you I love you. You remind your daughter, but at times if I'm not in the mood, it's just like, do you not think I'm not telling her that? Like
Yeah.
I'm already like wanting to like cringe, like I am doing that, but thanks. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a person thing.
No, I think it's a trigger. I think that sometimes we're triggered by like criticism. Sometimes it feels like people are saying things to tell us that we're not good enough. And I think
Mm,
that one, if you're somebody who's dealing with criticism or dealing with judgment or whatever, one, we have a bunch of stuff on the website about it, right? But two is look in yourself and see the insecurities that you have and start to deal with those things. Because I mean, realistically, like sometimes weeks later, I may be in a situation where I'm like, oh, that was actually good advice, right? But in the moment, I wasn't ready to hear it because I
right.
automatically go to defense mode. And so,
Mhm.
one, look at your triggers and your insecurities, but two, like set boundaries. I mean, we need to learn better to set boundaries with people. Like, just because we're young doesn't mean that we don't know something or doesn't mean that we're not adults. I have a friend who has battled with this too, where like her parent has said things that like she wasn't a young parent and she's like married and everything, but her parent says things sometimes that like make her feel like she's a child. And it's like, no, I'm grown. Like I pay my own bills, I take care of children, all the things. So I think that we need to be able to set boundaries and people need to be able to realize that like I got this.
Mhm.
Um anyways, okay, so our next question is how do you balance your personal identity and being a parent? Or do you?
Um, I really want to say I don't, but like I definitely do what I want. I'm a very much like of a person. If I said I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it, and I don't let being a parent get in the way with that for most things. Well, and especially now that my daughter is a little bit older. But it is hard because I feel like even though my daughter is turning 9 in January, I still feel like I'm somehow dealing with postpartum still, like 8 years into this. And
Yeah.
there's so many things that I know I like, or I know I want my hobbies, but there's sometimes where it's just like, I still don't feel content in it. I just feel like there's always so much going around. How can I be still in
Yeah.
myself without letting, parenting voices affect, whatever is going on? So I want to say that I try really hard to not let it, because I am really big on like self-care and, still
Yeah.
not letting parenting affect, my happiness and career paths and hobbies. But it's hard. I definitely struggle with finding out who I am. There's things that I like to do, but that was before I was pregnant. So I tap into them now thinking that that's what I enjoy and that's what I like, but not all the times it feels satisfying or the same. So kind of just navigating that and figuring out what new things are out there, putting yourself into new outlets, trying different things. But it's definitely hard. I don't feel like I fully know, my wants and needs for myself and my future. So yeah.
Yeah. I agree. And I'll even add another point of like realistically, identity development is happening from middle school through college, right? So
Mm,
through like early teen years to mid 20s. And so imagine we're raising children in that time. So how
right.
are we finding our own identity and developing ourselves when we're trying to also develop being a parent? I think that just adds a different layer to it. I will say that I just had an aha moment just this week where I was at a conference and somebody asked like, when did you feel most like confident or most self-esteem? And I was like, now. And
Mm,
now I'm finally walking into like, I deserve a lot of things. I'm actually a really good person.
mhm,
And I deserve to go out and to do the things that bring me joy and stuff. And this is my child is 13. Like that just so when you talk about like postpartum and stuff lasting, yes, you are so wrapped into and not like I'm still so wrapped into parenting because she still comes first for me. And there may be like, I don't know, different schools of thought for that. But I feel like I don't know. Like I feel like she deserves to come first. Like kids are only kids once, right? And
right.
so in her childhood she can come first, but I also feel like now I'm starting to find myself a little bit like I don't care. I feel like I still have a postpartum body. I feel like I have more postpartum body now than I had after having her. It's baby weight. It's baby weight.
Right.
Right? But I'm like, so what? I love it. All the things, all the roles, all the stuff. So yeah. Yeah, finding identity is tough, but I think that when you're in your 30s, when you have a child young, sometimes when you're in your 30s is when you start to find your identity a
Mm,
little bit more because you're still in the thick of it, you know?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it just taps into like the mom guilt. You want to do these things and then you feel guilty for doing it. So it's like
Mhm.
it's balancing that. But I know we talked about that a lot. But
Yep.
this does kind of tie in with my next question, which is what are you most afraid of regarding your child's future? That's a good one for me, at
That's a good
least.
one. I'm about to sip. Cheers. Before I even go there, okay? Mm. I
Okay.
think
Let me know when it's my turn.
I think okay, here's the thing. I think that we they always say you shouldn't parent in fear, but the
Mm,
real reality is that there's a lot of fear. We have anxiety on whether or not our child is breathing at night. We have like from the beginning, right? Whether or not
yeah.
you're going to hear a heartbeat on the ultrasound. Like there's so much from the
Right.
beginning that is put, especially on moms because we carry the children, right? So there's a different type of bond, and also especially as a single parent, it falls on you. Their future falls on you. So I think my biggest fear, if I can think about it, is just making sure that she feels like well-rounded and supported. I think I don't have fears if she's going to go to college or what her career will be or but I have fears about like, did I do enough? Right? Like I
Yeah.
feel like I'm doing all these things, but then there are glimmers sometimes where I'm like, it's just me. So when I'm feeling super overstimulated or I fall off the handle or I have a hard parenting day, like I did yesterday, um, like is that parenting day yesterday and the choices that I made, is that going to impact her future, and is she going to be in therapy for her whole life because
Right.
her mom messed her up, or I didn't give her enough, or I didn't give her a sibling in time, or I didn't give her a male role model in time. Whatever it is, like those are my fears for her, that she won't, that maybe she won't find solid relationships because I didn't model that for her, or maybe, I don't know. What do you have?
Honestly, it's very similar. My answer was going to be myself. Like, I'm scared of messing her up. I'm scared of, having to yell too much. I'm scared I spanked her too many times. I'm scared that I took dessert away too many times. I'm afraid because I put her in the corner, she's going to have suicidal thoughts. You have all these
Yeah.
experiences from that you've had. And it's like,
Yep.
how do you balance being an authoritative figure, but also that supportive and nurturing side? And I know we talk about that a lot with like single parenting, but it's true. I'm afraid that I'm not modeling, healthy relationships for her, or, setting boundaries and different things like that. So it's definitely comes back on myself for sure. I'm scared, like you said, I'm falling short. Am I doing enough? Did I do it in time, when
Right.
it was meant to happen? Did I step in when I should have? Did she ask me a question? Did I answer it the right way? Am I setting her up, for success? So, yeah, same here. It's
That's a
all
lot
about,
to carry.
yeah, beating ourselves up, really,
Yeah.
but while also trying to find grace and being proud of like
Mhm.
everything that we've done. So it's just, I feel like everything within parenting, especially young parenting, is on a spectrum, and it's just like, how do you balance it all? How do you teach
Mhm.
someone the way of the world, like you said, and when you're still figuring out? I know that was my biggest thing for me.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I think I agree. It's a lot to carry, and I wish people would understand that more when we talk about mom guilt, or we talk about young parenting or single parenting. We talk about judgment, stigma, isolation. Like, just imagine for those who are listening who are not, who were not young parents, or who are trying to learn more, who are not the ones who are asking these questions. I just would hope that people would understand that there's so much that parents carry, but then imagine carrying that also while also trying to find yourself and grow up yourself. It's hard. It's hard. um okay, so let's see, how let's kind of get a little bit, shake it up, right? How do you plan to address difficult conversations with your child about sensitive topics, like talking about sex or race or things happening in the world, or even like teen pregnancy, like stuff
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah. I feel like it comes with so much pressure being a young parent, and then like advising your child not to be a young parent, like without making them feel some kind of way, but also like, trying to provide the best support for them and the best information. My daughter is turning 9, like I said, so we haven't really hit the sex talks, and I don't know, so I'll be waiting for your answer, Brandy. But we are at like the kissing stage, and it's so,
Okay.
oh, she loves to like throw it in my face. Like, she'll bring home a book and it has kissing, and I looked at this page and I just want to show you what's in there. And I'd be like, I try not to shame it, so I'm just like, well, what they doing? Like, why are you showing me that? And she'd be like, "Oh, it's a school play that they're doing." I said,
Ooh,
"Oh, like, okay, you're in a school play," and she's actually Wendy, and there's gonna be a Peter Pan. So I'm just like, "Do you
yeah.
think that, like, do you want to do that?" And we've
Yeah.
had like instances at school with like, not her involved, but she has always told me the gossip of like a little girl and a little boy kissing under like the tunnel at recess, and I'm just like, well, I hope you're not doing that, but what's going on? Like, how do you say, I don't want you to be doing that, but are you doing that? How do you feel
Yeah.
about others doing that? It's kind of cringy also, just like having those serious conversations. It becomes kind of humorous as a parent in some areas. So like trying to stay serious, through it all without like
Yeah.
cringing. Um, I don't know. It's awkward. Yeah. How do you handle that? Because I am super scared of those conversations.
Yeah. I think it depends on, so the question is about like both about sex and things like that, and then also about like race and things and like things happening in the world, right? We know a lot of things are happening in the world. So I will start with that one. I think, kids, I never want to expose my daughter to more than she's ready to be exposed
Right.
to, or also lead with fear. Like she knew in kindergarten that certain people in society did not like black people, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
certain things. She knew that in kindergarten. That was conversations they were having at 5, 6 years old without me
Right.
even bringing it up. And so I think as long as it stays child led, you're good.
Mm-hmm.
Like you say she's about to be 9, that's literally 8.5, 9 is literally when Lyric started asking. She asked, like, where do babies come from? So it's coming because they're starting to understand. I think
Mm-hmm.
that also when she was little like a toddler, I was having a conversation, I think with her dad maybe, and we were talking about like how would we talk or how would I talk to her about sex, and he was like, well, would you tell her that it feels good? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And he was like, what do you mean? And I said, because here's the thing, like it was preached to us. We were raised in purity culture, right? So it was preached to us that like it's bad. You wait till marriage, blah blah blah. And great, like there are some very great benefits to waiting till marriage and all the things, right? But we also know that realistically, most people don't. And so if kids just think it's this bad, awful thing, then they question, like, well, then why do so many people do it? Then why do you do it? Why did you do it? Whatever, right?
Right.
And so then they start to question, and that's why they start to experiment. So, yes, I'm going to be real with her when she asks, because the other thing is that I think we don't talk enough about like pleasure when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
sex with young people. And then what happens is we have a bunch of people who feel like it's only to do it, like it's only for a job. And so that's why we have people, especially like young women, who are in sexually coercive relationships and stuff because they feel like it's their body is only to pleasure another person
Right.
and not to be pleasured themselves.
Right.
So yes, I think that that's going to be a hard conversation, but I also think that it's going to be a great conversation because my hope is that when she is ready, she is like showing up like, no, you're like, this is an equal partnership, right? But I also am gonna be real, like she is into boys now and she's like, navigating that, and she also knows like, okay, I think that there's certain boundaries that need to be not crossed. So that's a hard question, but I just think you answer their questions when they come up. That's what I would say.
Well, to move along, our next question is, how do I know if I'm ready for another baby?
Hmm.
Hmm.
That's a good one. I think that I think it's a personal choice, right? I think that especially as like young people or young parents, there's a stigma that, oh, if you're young or teen mom, you're at like increased risk of repeat pregnancy, which while statistics shows that, I think that using the word risk is kind of stigmatizing, right? Like I think that it's okay to plan for another child or to plan for your first child and also be young. So I would say that there's not necessarily a right time, but I don't want anyone to ever subscribe to like, oh, my child is 2, so this is the perfect gap, or oh, I'm getting older or whatever. Like ultimately, in yourself when you're ready. You know that like, I feel like I'm stable. I feel like I'm in a relationship where I have a partner that supports me and supports our child, or I don't, and I'm content being a single person and having another child. I think that as long as you feel like you have like love to give, you have capacity, and you're not doing it for the wrong reasons, like you're not doing it to fill some sort of like gap or need, or you're not doing it for somebody else, but you're doing it truthfully because I just love being a parent and I want to have more children. Then I think that's the right time. um as long as you like are taking care of yourself first, because children take a lot out of you, and so I wouldn't want anybody to feel like they're just popping out babies and not feeling like that's their choice.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I grew up with both my mother and grandmother teaching me like make sure you're having a baby for yourself. Like, don't have it for no one else.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you're going to be the one up with that baby, taking care of it, going to doctor's appointments, waking up all through the night. And that's so true. And I agree with everything Brandy said. Like, obviously, when you feel it's comfortable, I feel like this question is different for everyone and their situations. If you're having, a baby on your own, knowingly, without another parent in the picture, doing it on your own, that is completely okay and different.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say that if you're having it with someone knowingly that you want to be with them, my best advice would be make sure you're having it to the right person. Make sure you know this person, because some people make mistakes
Yeah.
in their choices, but our kids are never one of those mistakes, and we are left being the best mothers we can be
Yeah.
within our situation.
Or
So yeah,
fathers. I
yeah,
mean, just don't let anybody else tell you. Just know,
yeah.
like, I'm ready. Like right now, I'm ready. Right? I don't care what anybody says. I'm single, whatever. I'm ready. So I
I'm
don't
not.
care. I don't care if I have a partner. I don't care if society says whatever. I'm ready financially. I can support another child. I have the time. I've done the healing. I have my identity. All the things. So, yes. Okay. Right. Okay, so I want this one is a little bit spicy. Okay, so it says my mother-in-law is really controlling and won't let me look after my baby myself. How can I get her to back off? And I feel like
Block.
Divine, this could even go to like it doesn't have to be your mother-in-law. It could be your parent, your grandparent, whoever.
Um. Well, yeah, I guess, yeah, I can answer in both ways. For my mother, parents, grandparents, like on my side, who I feel comfortable with, I definitely had to set boundaries. They weren't necessarily received and respected in the way that I would have wanted them to, because it kind of just went one ear out the other. Because I do feel like that sometimes, especially when I was living at home with my parents. I would definitely sit in my bed like feeling like this is my mother's child, or like I don't have control over my child, but they do. So it
Hmm.
was definitely like a power struggle in different times in my life. Um, but those conversations are still necessary to have, whether they're respected or not. It gives you practice for setting boundaries with any and everybody, but
Hmm.
also it sets the tone of what you're willing to accept or not, and it gives you clear perspective of who is willing to respect and love you and support you in the way that you would like to be. um,
Hmm.
and that doing so, I laid a lot of boundaries down after my daughter was born, and it definitely was very clear who was for me, who wasn't for me. And as far as like in laws, I'm not personally opposed to blocking them,
Yeah.
moving to another state, and do what you have to do, because I'm talking from personal experiences,
Yeah.
but I just definitely don't feel like that's my responsibility to withhold those relationships, especially if I'm not being respected. And I can't trust this individual, that wouldn't be happening for me or with me. But for people who that is their only source of support or babysitter, that's really hard, and just another reason why it is important to have these conversations. Because yeah, how do you navigate that, being in an unsafe, uncomfortable space and having your child? I know I had to kind of suck it up and sacrifice it a bit when being at home, and it can feel like that. So it was a temporary thing that I had to deal with, knowing that I was about to be out that door sooner or later. But
Yeah.
that is hard to sit through, and feel neglected almost by your child. I think
Yeah.
it can definitely cause feelings like that.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said. Setting boundaries is important. Having those hard conversations. I think that it is really hard when it's family and you don't want to
Mm.
necessarily ruffle feathers, or you depend on these people. If it sounds like it's a mother-in-law, so then maybe you have a husband, and so or
Mhm.
a wife. And so if that's the case, then having that conversation and being a united front on that, because You may not be able to get out of state or even out of the house in this moment, but I think, just reclaiming that, and also knowing that, like, this is going to pass. Like, your feelings are valid. This time will pass. You'll be able to move out and be on your own, and know that you are a good parent.
Yeah. Also, yeah, no rush. If you can just get out, move. It took me maybe 6 years, 6, 7 years to
Yeah.
really, be able to be on my own. So there's definitely a lot of sacrifices that go into parenting for sure.
Mhm.
But to add on the spicy note, how or wait, how is this worded? Okay, okay. Should parents who drink or smoke weed in moderations be judged differently from those who don't? Tell me what you think, Brandy. Do you judge me?
I don't judge you or anybody, actually. Um, I don't think that parents should be judged for anything. The only first of all, only God can judge. Period.
Right.
So let's just start there. Second of all, I think that this is a loaded question, right? Because I think that, as somebody who has partaken in all of it, um, in the past, I think that, do you, right? So I don't think anybody should be judged. But I also think that there are healthy ways to partake. There are healthy ways, like, should you be smoking or drinking around your children? Maybe not. I don't know, but or exposing them to certain things. I think that you should expose children in healthy ways. I think that you should talk about, healthy ways to engage in substances with your children. And sometimes when you engage in them, it helps that break that ice of that conversation. Um, I think that, yeah, be safe. Like, always be safe. Obviously, like, if you're
Yeah.
smoking weed, making sure that you're not smoking weed that's laced with something else, right?
Mhm.
I would just come from
Yeah.
that health perspective, because I'm somebody who has partaken in, again, smoking, drinking, all the things, and who am I to judge? Like, do
Right.
you? I don't know. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. I mean, like, I definitely can't judge others because for those who don't know, I do have a green thumb. I do occasionally smoke weed and, drink on occasions. But it's hard, it's hard because there's definitely different mindsets and thought processes that go into that. Um, I feel like I do those things almost out of habit naturally because I did them when I was younger. So I am in a place now where I'm like questioning myself. Am I an addict? Like, can I go without this? Or like, am I okay with taking a break and like
Yeah.
what that would look like? How would that affect me? Um, but yeah, definitely doing things in a healthy way, not blowing smoke in your kid's face or near them and things like
Right.
that. Obviously, there's a clear line with that.
Yeah.
Um, but it is hard for, people who struggle with addictions or struggle from just natural habits like that, where how do you balance that? And with that being introduced to your kids, I know for me personally, me and my child don't really have conversations about it. I try not to involve her, but she swears she is CIA super agent. And like I could be in my room minding my own business and I may have like a vape pen, which is not good for you. But do as you please, because obviously I can't judge. She will literally come in there all black on, do a somersault roll, and be like, "Gotcha! I'm telling your mom. Why are you doing that? You're not supposed to be doing that." And like, it makes me feel so bad about myself. Like, you're so right. This is not good for me. I'm going to stop. Like, it makes me feel
Yeah.
bad about myself. But then on other hands, like it's hard for me to talk about it with Dynasty because I didn't grow up like that. Like that is not a conversation in my household.
Yeah.
Like that was not invited. That wasn't a topic. That was just a big no.
Yeah.
But then I see like TikTok videos who people who really do have healthy conversations with their child, or like it really affects them in positive. It affects their parenting positively
Hmm.
from different things or diagnoses or traumas and
Yeah.
health things that other people go through. So I'm definitely in the midst of it all. I mean, 9 years into this, still
Yeah.
figuring myself out, my health and habits. But parenting isn't perfect, and
Yeah.
as long as you're being healthy and safe, obviously that's all that matters. And as long as you're not like obviously prioritizing that over your kids, or like that be the reason there's no gifts under the tree this
Oh,
year.
yeah. Yeah.
There's definitely different circumstances. But yeah, just making sure that you're being conscious about your decisions, but also like putting yourself in outlets, to learn more about it and how to navigate that, or if you continue that, how to talk to your children positively about that. Because I see a lot of videos of people that do. It's just hard because my child has already learned that that's not good for you. So she's just like, why are you harming yourself at that point?
Yeah.
So that is hard because there's some people who don't look at it as that is a harmful thing.
Yeah.
So I don't ever want to like steer her in the wrong direction or ever be like an influence. Like if I didn't start smoking, I would have never, I would never be smoking probably. I mean, I can't say, but I would hope that I wouldn't have if I'd never been introduced to it. So like that is hard, balancing that out with your kids and growing up with your kids
Hmm.
and all the things. But yeah, that's my thought process.
Yeah. Something you said is important too. I think that it's important to not to understand why you're doing it. I think if
Mm.
it's a coping mechanism, then I would say finding other coping mechanisms that are just different, so that you don't come to the point where you're feeling like maybe you're dependent or whatever on anything. I mean, whatever it is, like it could be food. People are like, eat to cope and stuff like that. So I would say finding things that help you cope and figuring out what you're doing it. If you're doing it recreationally, like when you're out drinking, when you're out or whatever, then that's different than to cope. So looking at those things, right, and figuring out, I don't know, what feels best for you and how you can kind of move through. Um, but I just wanted to kind of piggyback on that a little bit, because we have a question that says, should parents force kids to follow rules that they don't follow themselves?
I would say no. And it's funny because I actually had a conversation with my friend about this recently. I don't know if it's from where I come from or just, excuse me, the way I talk, but she says I talk very aggressively, which is funny because I feel like the same for her. But but there's like I grew up and I've had conversations with Justice about this, a lot of different people, but I grew up responding what is like not okay. Like that's very disrespectful. You need to respond yes or I beg your pardon or something like that.
Mhm.
Um and my daughter, she will for the most part, but there's definitely occasions or majority of the occasions where she's like, what? And I think like naturally in the beginning of my parenting, that bothered me by just what I was used to. But like after, getting into this gentle parenting by choice, um, I've learned that like that why put them up to that standard if you're not gonna withhold it? Because I definitely say what a lot. And
Yeah.
my friend was one time she asked me something and I said, what? Like, girl, what you said or what? Or something like that. And she was just like, oh, if I didn't know you, I would have thought you were getting smart. And your daughter does that too. And I was just like, well, I don't force my daughter to not say that because I know that I'm not going to say it to her. There's going to be times like it
Right.
obviously is different if there was an attitude addressed with it or something like that. But if it's just a natural, what? I didn't hear you. Like, how can I punish her for that? And I do that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think that there's a way, there's that saying, like, do as I say, not as I do, or whatever, which is
Mm-hmm.
fine. But I think kids don't understand that, and they want to push boundaries, just like we were talking about
Oh,
earlier
yeah.
with sex or whatever,
Mhm.
right? They want to push boundaries. And so for me, it's about just leading by example. Like, there's a lot of times that my child will get smart or whatever. I'm like, oh shoot, I say those same things, or oh shoot, I whatever. But I think also I mean, I think it's a case by case thing, right? I think there's also, we as parents have the right to say, hey, I did this thing. I talk to my daughter all the time, or I have talked to her about making different decisions with relationships and like with multiple boys. I'll say boys because they definitely weren't men, boys, or like making, drinking or smoking or whatever. Like she knows that I've engaged in all of these things. And so what I tell her is that I was engaging in stuff, or I was in relationships, or I got myself in situations because I was insecure, because I wasn't taking care of myself, because
Mhm.
I felt like I needed to uphold this persona so that people would like me or whatever. And so what I say is, not don't not do it, like if that's what you choose, but do it for the right reasons. Like now that you're
Mhm.
engaging, you're, interested in boys, or you're doing whatever, like don't go making poor choices like I made just because just because you can say my mom did it. Make
Yeah.
them because you feel secure in yourself and you feel secure in your choice. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where I am with like the do as I say, not as I do thing. I explained to her why I would prefer her not to do those things, why I would prefer her to wait or to whatever, because I want her to be sound in her mind and sound in her body and all
Yeah.
the things. Um,
Yeah. I definitely like that. Yeah, I completely agree. And I really actually like how you worded some of that with that language. I definitely will be implementing that with Dynasty because I actually literally just had a conversation with her this morning, just addressing that, I want you to be better than me. Sometimes when I'm hard on you or make you do things that you don't enjoy, it's because, I want you to be the best version of you. And I had to assure her that neither of us are perfect. We've all make mistakes and I've made ton of them, but I would hope that she doesn't have to make the same mistakes that I have. And so I think that's super important, just reminding your little one that we're both human and that we had to talk about just us being in this together, and sometimes I need her help when I'm, in rough times of being mommy, and I will do my best to help her when she's, having rough times of being, daughter. So just letting them know like you guys are in it together and just
yeah.
assuring them that, you can get through it and look at the positive. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Can we bring it home with just one last question? Um, I don't know. I think there's a good one. Like, what's the most ridiculous tantrum your kid threw or something? Like, let's just end fun on a funny, light note. What do you think?
I mean, there's so many, to be honest. Like, no more Oreos left, having soccer practice,
Right.
like, um, setting up the tree. I mean, I think they're all ridiculous, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Same. I think,
Yeah.
I think of things like you don't want to go to school, but then when I pick you up early,
Mm.
you are upset, but you say you didn't even want to go.
Mm.
Or like you said, like not wanting to go
Right.
to soccer practice, not wanting to go to something that you say you want to do. you know, I think I
Right.
always hear parents saying things like you put their juice in the blue cup and not the red cup, but all week they
Mhm.
wanted the blue cup. Today they decided that they wanted the red
Mhm.
cup, but didn't tell you. So I'm always telling my daughter, like,
Mhm.
I'm not a mind reader. How am I supposed to know that that's what you thought or that's what you
Right.
wanted
Mhm.
without you telling me that that's what you thought or what you wanted? So, y'all, parenting is just,
Exactly.
it's a journey. We have to do this again because this is so fun to just answer your questions. Send us more questions. We would love to do this again.
Yes, yes. Yes, but I actually have one last question to
Okay.
put the cherry on top of things.
Okay.
If your parenting was a movie or a book, what would the title be? I have a couple.
Hmm.
I feel like The Wild Wild West, Wild Wild
Mhm.
East, Oceans Roaring, Hot Air Balloon, Connect the Dots. Stop pushing the button. I don't know. Something
Okay.
crazy.
Mine, I guess I can think of one. Mine would probably be, you never know what you're gonna get. Watch your back. I don't know. Probably be some sort of like comedy horror where
Yeah, I
you
definitely
know,
get that. Very much thriller.
thriller. It would be definitely action. It would be we doing it. Um, blurred
Buckle
lines,
up.
buckle up.
Read the room.
But also like really loving and endearing. Like, you know, I
The
don't
best of all. The
know.
best of both worlds.
Yes. I mean, I could not imagine
Well,
it any other way.
yes. Well, thank you for indulging in my last question.
Yes.
Thank you to all of our subscribers and watchers. Please leave a comment. Let us know what you want us to go over next, talk about next. If you want to be a guest, please have us on.
Yay.
Brandy, if there's nothing else, I think we can take our last sip and say goodbye.
Yes. Happy holidays.
Cheers.
Cheers. We love
Yes.
y'all.
Stay fun.
Until next time, y'all. Bye.
That's a wrap.
If you enjoyed the Yup podcast, please subscribe, share, and leave a comment. And visit youngunitedparents.org for the information, community, and resources young moms and dads need to thrive.